Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking on a case that, for over a decade, really defined Long Island, the Gilgo Beach investigations. For years, the remains of 11 individuals, all found along Ocean Parkway, represented one of the most frustrating and just haunting cold cases in modern American history.
It's a profound tragedy, and it really touches on every single failure point in law enforcement and forensic science over the last couple of decades.
Yeah.
Our sources detail these immense institutional hurdles that just kept the case dormant. So before we dive into the nuts and bolts, we have to remember the victims, especially the women known as the Gilgo Beach Four.
Right. Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, Amber Costello, and Maureen Brainerd Barnes.
Exactly.
And that focus is why we're here. It's why this new task force, formed in 2022, was so important. Our mission today is to dissect the exact moment and the exact technology that let investigators take decades of stalled evidence and finally get a breakthrough.
And we're going to show you how a trail involving a witness description from 2010, a specific truck, and something as mundane as a pizza crust finally cracked this case wide open.
Okay, let's unpack this.
What's truly illuminating is just the speed of it all. Once things got moving, you have a decade of nothing. Then, Rex Heuermann, this architect, married, father of two, he was identified as a suspect in March 2022.
And the task force was formed when?
Just 2 months earlier, January 2022.
Wow. And what's so crucial for you to understand is that the first big break, it wasn't new evidence. It was just a fresh look at old evidence.
Yeah, the key.
So what was that piece of information that had been sitting in a file since 2010?
It connects right back to one of the Gilgo Four, Amber Costello. After she disappeared in 2010, a witness came forward.
Okay.
They reported seeing one of her clients driving a really distinct vehicle, a first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche pickup truck.
An Avalanche. Okay, that's specific.
Very specific. And here's the detail that makes it so memorable. The witness described the driver as looking. Well, they said he looked like an ogre.
An ogre. So we have a unique truck and a physical description from way back in 2010. And for years, nothing came of it.
Nothing. But in 2022, the new task force finally connects the dots. They cross-referenced that vehicle type with registration records.
They found one.
They found one registered to Rex Heuermann at the time of the murders, and then they discovered his wife was out of state during the periods when at least 3 of the victims were murdered.
So that gives him the vehicle and the window of opportunity. But that's not enough for an indictment, right? That's where the forensics come in.
Exactly. This is where it gets really interesting.
How do you bridge that gap from an old truck description to an ironclad DNA case?
The task force knew they needed a direct physical link, so they started surveillance.
On Heuermann.
On Heuermann. And on January 26, 2023, they got their chance. They saw him discard a pizza box in a trash can in Manhattan.
A pizza box.
They recovered it, and they were able to swab the leftover crust inside. That discard. That was the direct sample they needed.
Just throwing out his pizza gave them the key. So what did the DNA from that crust actually match?
It matched a male hair sample that had been recovered years earlier. This hair, which didn't have a root, was found near the bottom of the burlap that was used to restrain Megan Waterman's body.
Wow.
Forensic scientists compared the mitochondrial DNA, the mtDNA from the pizza crust, to that preserved hair.
And
the profiles were the same. Critically, this excluded 99.96% of the North American population as a potential match.
that is a massive statistical tie. Okay, so let's move from the physical evidence to the digital ghosts this guy allegedly left behind. It wasn't just a single hair.
Not at all. The source documents revealed this extensive and frankly deeply disturbing digital footprint. Heuermann allegedly used prepaid anonymous burner phones to contact the victims.
And the pattern was always the same.
A key pattern, yes. He disposed of the phone almost immediately after the victim's death. And investigators traced these phones to numerous online accounts, all with fake names. Things like John Springfield, Thomas Hawk, Hunter 1903A3.
He's trying to be anonymous, but what did the accounts actually show? What was he looking at?
The review showed thousands of searches related to sex workers, sadistic, torture-related pornography, and child pornography. But the most chilling detail, the thing that confirmed he was their guy, was his obsession with the Gilgo case itself.
He was following his own case.
Constantly. Over a 14-month period, he conducted more than 200 Google searches on the Gilgo investigation. He searched for photos of the victims, their families, even their sisters and children.
That's not just a connection. That's That's a compulsion to monitor the response.
Absolutely. And the final piece of the digital puzzle was geography. His personal cell phone records consistently placed him in the same areas as the burner phones when they were used.
Whether he was at home in Massapequa Park or at work in Manhattan.
Exactly. The geolocation pings just corroborated the entire timeline.
That single hair on the burlap. It forces us to talk about the science. Because without a huge leap in forensic tech, that clue is still sitting in a box. Useless.
You're exactly right. The breakthrough was all about advanced DNA testing on that tiny, degraded, rootless hair.
So explain that. When we think of DNA testing, we're thinking of, what, a blood sample?
Right, you're thinking of nuclear DNA, the full profile you get from blood or saliva inherited from both parents, but a rootless hair shaft. It degrades quickly. There's often no viable nuclear DNA left.
So that's why mitochondrial DNA, or mtDNA, became the only option.
Precisely. Mitochondrial DNA is only inherited from your mother, and crucially, you have thousands of copies in every cell. It's far more stable. For the shaft of an old hair, mtDNA analysis is often the only option.
And this is where things get legally complicated, right? The defense challenged this.
They did. They argued the methods were too new for New York courts.
What were they challenging, specifically?
Two things. First, the method for extracting the data itself. It's called whole genome sequencing, or SNP data. And second, the specialized software used to analyze it, called IBD-GEM.
Okay, IBD-GEM. What does that software do that traditional testing couldn't?
That's the critical question. IBD-GEM is what's called probabilistic genotyping. It's basically a highly sophisticated statistical calculator. It takes tiny, incomplete bits of DNA data and compares them to huge reference libraries.
Like the 1000 Genomes Project.
Exactly. And then it calculates a likelihood ratio. It tells the court the statistical probability that this match happened by chance versus the probability it came from the suspect.
So it's not saying this is him, it's saying the chance of this not being him is statistically tiny.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the court ultimately found that the methods were reliable and generally accepted. The judge pointed out it was already used in other states like Idaho and California.
And that ruling allowed this advanced DNA evidence into a New York trial for the first time.
A landmark decision for cold cases in the state.
But this impressive science is really overshadowed by a tragic reality. Why did it take over a decade to act on evidence that was just sitting there?
And that is the grim heart of this story. Our sources point very strongly to deep-seated corruption in Suffolk County law enforcement.
Specifically two people, Police Chief James Burke and DA Thomas Sputta.
Yes. In 2012, soon after Burke was appointed, he explicitly barred his officers from sharing information with the FBI. He actively removed the original detectives who were making progress on the case.
Which is just unbelievable. And the feds already knew something, didn't they?
It did. A 2012 federal report based on burner phone data that was available under Burke's watch had already generated an eerily accurate profile.
What did it say?
It suggested the killer lived in Massapequa Park, where Heuermann lived, and commuted to Manhattan. That lead was right there.
But Burke never acted on it.
Never.
And his motivation seems to be rooted in just pure self-preservation.
It connects directly to his own crimes. In 2016, Burke was convicted for assaulting a man named Christopher Loeb.
Right, the man who stole a bag from Burke's department SUV.
A bag that contained Burke's pornography and sex toys. Burke went into the interrogation room where Loeb was handcuffed and chained, and he beat him.
Just horrific. And the corruption didn't stop with the assault. It became a cover-up.
A full-blown institutional cover-up. Burke and other officials spent 3 years obstructing the federal investigation into that assault. And then DA Thomas Spota was convicted for his role in protecting Burke.
As one prosecutor said, while all this was going on, no police work is getting done. They're spending their day protecting Jimmy.
That quote tells you everything you need to know.
It really does. The new task force found their man in 6 weeks using evidence that had been sitting there for over a decade.
Yeah.
That contrast is just, it's staggering.
It's the most damning indictment possible of the prior leadership. It wasn't a lack of evidence. It was an institutional choice to protect one man over public safety.
So as we broaden the scope here, we need to be clear. The focus started with the Gilgo 4, but 11 sets of remains were found in total.
That's right. And Heuermann has now been charged with the murders of 7 women. That includes the Gilgo 4, plus Valerie Mack, Jessica Taylor, and Karen Vergata.
And some of those women were only identified years later through forensic genealogy, right? Like Vergata, her remains were found back in 1996.
It's incredible. It shows you the power of that science, giving victims their names back after decades.
The search of Heuermann's home, it didn't just reveal a suspect. It revealed an alleged plan.
A very detailed one. Police found a hard drive with a Microsoft Word document on it. They're calling it a methodical blueprint for murder.
What was in it?
It was written in all caps, reminders to clean the bodies and destroy evidence, even notes to himself like, get sleep before hunt and have a story set. And this was in a house where they also found at least 279 weapons in a basement vault.
A methodical blueprint.
Yeah.
An obsession with control. But when you compare that plan to the physical evidence they actually found, like the hair, there's a huge disconnect.
A massive disconnect. The goal was clearly to leave no trace. But physical evidence, including his own DNA and even transfer DNA from his family members, was left behind.
Transfer DNA? You mean like a hair from his wife or daughter?
Exactly. The theory is that it was transferred from his own clothing onto the victims. It shows a level of sloppiness that completely contradicts the methodical blueprint he allegedly wrote.
We also have to acknowledge the thread running through these cases.
Yeah.
The vulnerability of the victims. Many were sex workers.
And that's critical context. Perpetrators like this, like Gary Ridgway before him, have admitted they target sex workers because they falsely believe they're easy targets and that no one will care if they go missing.
It's a horrible calculation, and this all raises a really important question for anyone following this case now. The investigation has spread way beyond Long Island.
To Las Vegas, to South Carolina, places where he owns property, a vehicle was seized.
So does this mean the full scope of his alleged crimes could be significantly larger?
Authorities are actively looking into that, yes, cross-referencing him with unsolved cases in these areas. This case is it's a profound testament to persistence, to the investigators who wouldn't give up, and to the power of new technology.
It really is. The successful arrest was this convergence of cutting-edge tech finally meeting the evidence, but only after those institutional roadblocks were cleared. We know he's charged with 7 murders, but key questions remain. What about the other 4 unidentified remains found at Gilgo? How many other victims could be out there?
And that brings us back to that alleged planning document. The goal was total control, the perfect crime. But the police found hair, transfer DNA, a digital trail. So think about this. What does that gap, that failure to execute his own methodical plan, tell us about the chaotic reality of the alleged killer? Was the compulsion to document the hunt greater than his ability to actually pull it off cleanly? That disconnect between the plan and the evidence left behind is a fascinating legal and psychological question for you to explore as this case moves forward.